So we'll start with the pickup item. That's going to be a little bit easier, but it's a very similar process. So one of the things that we want to double check is that we have a global script and that our global script is able to count the items that we want to count. So to check your global script, go to project settings, and go to globals, and just make sure you have the global script enabled here. If you don't see that here, you can click the folder button and go to scripts and add global, and just make sure that the name uses a lowercase g to match the code in the project. So once you have that set up, let's take a look at what that script looks like. So we can open it through the file system. We can go to scripts and go to global. And this is a pretty simple script. It just has a couple of variables in it. And these are just a couple examples of things that you might want to have. So one is this apple count variable. This is just an example of like an item that you may want to count. So I don't have an apple item. I have like a juice box or a juice bottle item. So you could change that if you want, or you can just, use the apple. It doesn't really matter. But if I had apples already and I wanted to add something else, or I wanted to do more items, I could just add a new variable to track using the same basic syntax. So I could add a juice count, and I'm going to cast this as an integer, which just means a whole number, and I'm going to set it equal to 0. So when I add this into the global script, what this does, this is very similar to the variables we used in Twine and Bitsy and GameMaker as well. Basically, it just asks our game engine to create like a place in the memory called juice count, and just remember that right now we have 0 juice items. And what we're going to do is when we collect a juice item, we're going to increase that number, and we'll display it on the screen so the player knows how many items they've collected. Some items, like a key, might be a Boolean instead of a integer. So an integer is just a whole number, like 0, 1, 2, etc. A Boolean is a true or false value. So if you have a key, that is just going to be either true or false. Either you have it or you don't. So you could also use a number to represent a key. It doesn't really matter that much, but these are just a couple examples. So if you have a special key to open a specific door, you can create that variable there. So just as an example, you could just use the existing variable here, but I'm going to create a new variable just to give you guys an example. So I'm going to say level 1 portal key. And I'm going to cast this as a bool and set it equal to false. So this basically just says that we do not currently have the level 1 portal key because it's false. But if we find that key, we're going to set it to true, and we'll be able to unlock the portal. So let's start with our juice bottle. So if we look at our juice bottle scene, or no, our juice bottle is a model. So we need to create a new scene and use our juice bottle as a mesh and then collect it. There's different ways to do this, but I'm going to start by creating a new component. And so I'll go to my scenes and go to components. And just like I have like this portal component, like if we look at this portal component, it's just a portal that I can drop into any scene. Same thing with my tree and my wall. I just want to create a new component that has all the information for my juice thing, including the script, so that I can use that in multiple levels. So I'm going to close these guys, and I'm going to create a new scene. So I just hit the plus button there, and I'm going to choose a 3D scene because we're working on a 3D project. And I'm going to rename this juice bottle, or I'll just call it juice. It doesn't have to be, just something descriptive. So I'm going to save this scene. I'm going to hit Command S and go to Scenes and go to Components and save this as juice here. And then I'll just add my juice model in here because we want to, that's one of the main components we want is this juice model so that we can, find the juice. So we have the juice model here. I'm going to reset the transform so it's just centered in the middle of my scene. And now we can add the script and add our interaction. So actually, one thing that I screwed up is I shouldn't have used a generic 3D node because I need an area to be able to interact with this object. So similar to how my portal is set up, I need this node to be an area 3D so I can detect when the player has entered the area. So I don't have to restart. What I can do is just right click on that node and change the type. And I'm going to change this to an area, but I want an area 3D, which is down here. So I'm going to click change. And you can see this little warning sign pops up because we don't have a shape. So anytime we have some type of collider, like an area or a static body, we need a shape to go along with it. So I'm going to add the plus and look for a collision shape. And then this collision shape needs a shape property. So what I want to do is match something that looks very similar or matches the same area as the bottle so that when I enter that area, I'll collect the bottle. So the bottle is just a visual. This shape is what we actually interact with. So I'm going to use a capsule shape because that's going to be very similar to the bottle. And I'm going to move it up and just kind of size it using these little size icon gizmos. And I'm just going to make it a little bit smaller than the bottle area. I don't want to hit this area before I'm ready to interact with the bottle. So that looks pretty good. It's inside of the bottle. It's actually a little bit wider than the bottle here. And so we can't really see it once it's in there, but we know it's there. It's those blue lines. So once I've got that set up, that looks good. I just need to make sure, I need to go back to the area and change a couple settings. So one setting is the collision layer. I need to remember to set this or I won't be able to interact with the player. So the layer, I'm going to put this on as collectible. And then I'm going to turn off the player layer because it's obviously not the player. And then the mask, we just leave the same. We want to interact with the player, so that's fine. The next thing I need to do is add a signal to the script. Or actually, I need to add the script first. So let's go down to our script. We're going to click on the folder, and we're going to look for the collectible script. So we're going to add that on there. And you can see that adds a type. And what we want is for our type to match our global script. So for this one, I'm going to put juice, and then we'll add that to the script in a moment. Next, I need to add the signal. So I'm going to go to the node section and go to body entered, just like we did with our portal. And I'll double click on this and add it to our juice script. One of the advantages of creating this in a separate scene window is that I don't have like all the other scenes. I can just find the exact script that I want. And I can pick the attached script if I'm not totally sure which one, but it should just be on body entered. So I'll click connect, and we should see this little green signal appear next to our script. So that's good because we want to edit the script. So if you don't see that, you can click on this little scroll button, and that'll bring the script up. And so notice this script. So when the player enters the body, if the type is Apple, then we're going to increase the global Apple count. So we are, in this case, we're actually using juice as the type. So if you're not using the apple, you need to add to this script. You can just use the apple, even if it's not an apple, if you don't want to write extra code. If you just have one item, you can just use apple as the type, even if it doesn't look like an apple. That's fine. But if you have multiple items, you'll have to add code here. So I'm going to go back to my global script and just double check that this is called juice count. So that looks good. And now I'll go back to my collectible script, and I don't have to delete this code. I can just leave that here. I'm just going to add new code. I'm going to say if type equals juice. And I just have to make sure that this matches whatever I write in the type section here. And it also has to match capital letters. So if I have like capitalized juice like this, then it needs to be capitalized in the code like that. So that's a common mistake when you're writing code. It doesn't recognize that J and capital J are the same letter. It only recognizes lowercase j and capital J as lowercase j and capital J. Okay, so once I determine what type it is, I'm going to say global.juiceCount. equals, and I'll make this a little bit smaller, global dot juice count plus 1. So I'm just adding 1 to the overall number of juices that I've collected. And that's it. That's all we have to do to modify the script. It's exactly the same as these 2 lines of code, but we're changing the type here. You could even just edit this type. You know, you could just change what it says here. But if you want to add more items, that's how you can do it. Okay, so we've done everything we need to do to set things up. Let's go back to our level. And I'm going to remove the just juice bottle mesh because it doesn't have the scene set up. So I'm just going to delete that. And I'm going to replace it with my new component. So I'm going to go to Scenes and Components and drag this juice component on here. And so now we have this juice component. If I go to the scene edit, you can see it opens up that new little scene. And now I can make as many of these as I want. So maybe I'll make a new node 3D just to hold all my juice items. I'll say juice collectibles. I misspelled collectible. And I'll put that in there. And then if I want to make one more of these, I can just duplicate with Command D. And I can make a bunch of juice items for my player to collect. So this script will get rid of the item once we collect it. So if I run this scene now, I can see my juice items over here. And if I interact with the juice item, it's going to disappear. And we can't see it right now, but my juice count is increasing. So when we add our UI, we'll be able to see that count. I don't hear the sound. I'm getting an error. Let's check this error. Oh, okay, yeah. So the reason I'm not getting an error is actually the exact next thing that I'm going to talk about, which is that once we add that item, there's a part of our script that will play a sound when we collect the item. And I'm getting an error here because I haven't added it yet. So let's go ahead and add that now to the player. So I'm going to open the player scene. And you can see I have a jump and a footstep, but I haven't added my item sound yet. And I need that to play the sound for the items. If I look in the script, you can see where I'm getting the error is right here. There's no pickup sound. So we want to change that. So we have this play pickup sound, and we want a sound called pickup, and we're going to play that. So what I can do here is I can either just duplicate one of these sounds, or I can add a new audio stream player. You could have this be a 3D stream player, and so it'll be positional, or you could make it a regular stream player, so it'll just play the same volume everywhere. I'm gonna do a 3D. I accidentally added it to the footstep. It's not gonna work if it's a child of the footstep, so I need to make sure it's a child of the player. And I need to rename it pickup. And this has to match. The order doesn't really matter, but I just want it to be next to my other sound items. Although the footstep timer is right there, so maybe I should put this down here. So this just has to match the script exactly. Same thing with the capital letters. So now we can just put a sound here. So I'll click on the folder, and I added a pickup coin, so I'll just put that there. And I'm going to put the volume at -12 because I'm going to assume that's a little too loud. And so now if we play our level 1, we should hear that sound. There we go. I don't know if you hear my footsteps for some reason or the music. Maybe I forgot to save. Yeah, it looks like I did not save my previous demo, but that's okay. It's still in the recording. I'll update that later. But you can hear the sound, and we can collect our juice items. So that is good for us. Okay. So let's add the key, and that'll be it for our current demo. So the key works very much the same way, but obviously the code is a little bit different. And we'll have to, adjust the code a little bit. So I'm going to make another scene just like my juice scene, but it'll be a key, and I'll put it over here. I'm gonna put it right next to the portal just for testing purposes. But for your game, obviously, if you have a key to a door, you probably want to put it somewhere else that's not right next to the door. So I'm gonna add a new scene and choose a 3D scene, or actually, no, I don't want a 3D scene. Don't want to make the same mistake. Okay, what I want is an area. So I need to click Other Node and search Area 3D and create. And I'm going to call this Level 1 Key. And I'm going to save that in my Components folder. Okay, so when I create an area, it says I need a collider, but I need a shape first. So for this, I'm just going to use a text mesh and just put in the word key just to make it very obvious what we're looking at. But you should obviously use a key mesh or a model or whatever you want to use to make it look good. So let's add a little material. Maybe I'll make it yellow, like a key, or sort of gold. And maybe I'll make it kind of metallic. Anyway, I don't need to spend a ton of time here with the material, but let's go to text and I'll just write key. And I'll increase the font size so it's pretty visible. So that should be pretty visible. Maybe I'll do like 40. And so now I need a collision shape that matches this mesh. So if you have some visual or something else, that will look good. But I just need something to match this area or this visual. So let's add a collision shape. And then this is kind of like boxy. So let's make a box. And I'm just going to use the these red gizmos to kind of make this box match my collider or my mesh. And again, I want it to be a little bit smaller. I don't want to run into my collider before I've really gotten to the key area. It actually really doesn't matter if this is like tiny, as long as our player can interact with it, it'll be fine. So we have our collision shape, and then we need to do the same setup. So let's set the collision layer. This is a different type of collectible, but it's still a collectible. So let's put it on the collectible layer, turn off player, and that's good. And then we need to go to node, on body entered, and connect this to our, oh no, we need to add a script first. Whoops. So let's add our collectible script. So even though we're collecting different types of things, we're still basically collecting something, so we can use the same script here. So now I'll go to node, go to body entered, and connect to the script. And so now you can see here it says if type is special key. So remember, I made a new key. If you just have one key, you can just leave the code the same. But I made a new key, so I'm going to double check my global and see what I called it. So I called it level 1 portal key. So I'm going to copy that, and I'm going to go back to my collectible script. And I'm going to put that as my type. So for my level 1 key, I'll put the type here. And then I'll say if type equals level 1 portal key, then global.level1 portal key equals true. So notice a little bit of a difference here. So when I'm testing to see if something is the same, I use the quotation marks. But when I'm referencing a variable, I don't. So this is something that's important to understand with code. When we're talking about data, like the type of something up here, we're using a string value, and that has to go in quotation marks. When we're talking about code, when I have type or global or the variable name, I don't use quotation marks because that's part of the code. Okay, so if we collect this key, then this value will be true, and we should be able to open our portal. But we're gonna have to adjust our portal a little bit first as well. Okay, so let's go back to our level and go back to 3D mode. And we're gonna add our key into our scene. So I'm gonna click the instance and search for my key. And I'm gonna put it next to the portal just to make it easier to test. And so I should already be able to collect the key, but it won't influence the portal until I set up the portal correctly. So let's, I put this in a juice thing. Let's move this up here next to the portal. So for my portal, there's a couple of things that I need to set here. So one is require key. I'll turn that on. And then the next is the key name. So I need to paste in the variable that I created, level 1 portal key. So that way, now the portal will say I need a key, and it'll also know which key it needs. So if you leave that as the default special key, that's fine. If you create your own key, that's what you would do. Okay, so let's test that out. So let's collect all my juice boxes or bottles. Let's collect my key, and now I can use the portal. And actually, just to test, so the portal should not work if I don't have the key. So if I go through the portal, oh, whoops. Okay, oh, I have an error. Let's debug. Okay, so I think that's an unrelated error that I may need to fix anyway, but let's double check. So we have requires key. So it shouldn't let us go in. I might need to double check this, but let's see. Okay, let me check. Okay, yeah, that's not working exactly correctly. So I'll debug this, and if I need to, upload a new script. But it should work as is. So I'll take a look at these bugs and try to make sure this is working correctly. But that's the basic setup. So I'll fix that up and then add a new script. But it should be an easy fix, and we'll go from there. So I'll update that script when I have a chance. Anyway, that's the basic idea. So we can have some different collectibles, and then we can name them whatever we want to add keys or unlock other components of the game. So the item, collectible, and the key are just examples, but anything that you can do where you would collect something and then use any type of gating, like you need something to get somewhere else, you can use these scripts. All right, so I'm going to stop